So we are here today to talk with David Acheson, president and founder of the Acheson Group, about environmental controls. And some of the questions that we've heard is people talking about, they've heard the terms EMP and ECP, but don't really know what these mean. David, can you talk a little bit about environmental controls and what some of these programs and initiatives are related to it?
Yeah, no, sure, Lisa, and you're right. I mean, it's these are terms that are thrown around frequently, and what exactly do they mean, and what are the implications? Environmental Control Program, or ECP, is essentially a program that is focused on understanding how you control the environment in a particular part of the plant, which is usually your ready-to-eat area, the area that's of greatest at risk. So an environmental control program is really focused on what are all the things that I'm doing to control the risk in there. Another way of looking at it is keeping the bad bugs out, keeping that area as clean as it needs to be. An EMP is an environmental monitoring program. And it's important to understand the relationship between the two. And the control program, like any control program, is designed to control a risk. The monitoring program is designed to verify that that risk is being controlled.
Okay.
So as we look at the way those two might work together, having a robust environmental control program gets into all of the factors like movement of people, movement of equipment, movement of food, movement of air, movement of water, drains, cleaning, sanitation, education, GMPs. So many of those components play into your environmental control program, which is focused on, as I said, keeping the bad bugs out, whether it's Listeria monocytogenes or Salmonella, keeping them where they belong, which is not on your food contact surface in your ready-to-eat area. Then the environmental monitoring program should be set up to verify that those controls work. So where you swab, how often you swab, what you look for, what you do when you find a positive, sort of then plays into both. So the monitoring program is monitoring, verification. Now, a good environmental monitoring program will from time to time pick up a pathogen. It'll pick up Listeria species if you're looking at that. It'll pick up Salmonella, and a good program should be designed to do that.
Okay.
And that's another point that we should discuss in a minute. But the environmental monitoring program should be designed to find problems,
Okay.
and identify them early so you can jump on them. And then built off your environmental monitoring program is, well, what do I do if I've got a positive? And how do I react to that? Do I just clean the area and move on, or should I shut the line down? And somewhere in between those two is the right answer, because you start to get variables in terms of, well, how often have I seen this? And is this indicative of a bigger problem? And should I be vectoring out? So when we talk about vectoring out, when you find a positive, you want to be asking your question, where did it come from? Just because you find a positive hit in a drain, does that mean it started in the drain? Well, it might, but it also, simply because a drain is a drain, it might be that's where it landed up. And in fact, it was because there was a runoff from something 5 feet away. And that's truly where your positive is. So reacting to your environmental monitoring program is a key part of sort of linking those two together. And as your controls are controlling the risk, your monitoring is verifying those controls are working. When you find something in your monitoring program, you may have to go back and say, oh, that control didn't work. I need to change something. I need to alter my cleaning and sanitation program. I need to do some retraining. So they're very integral. And a common mistake that we find is when companies just build an environmental monitoring program. So they're doing lots of swabbing, and they regard that as their control.
Oh.
And I think the key message here is, philosophically, the control is about controlling risk, and the monitoring is about verifying that risk is controlled. And it sounds like a simple concept, and it is, but you've got to put the two together. And when you do that, you optimize your system.
So can you provide a few examples of some key environmental controls?
When it comes to looking at environmental controls themselves, what we're talking about, I need to take a break because Alze has just come back and the dogs are going to go nuts. So we have to stop. When we talk about environmental controls per se, we're looking at controlling the movement of bacteria for the most part. So here it gets into looking at your cleaning and sanitation. Are you cleaning adequately? You know, removing food debris, cleaning up properly? Are you sanitizing after you've cleaned? Are you checking that that program is working, say through ATP testing? When it comes to looking at other aspects of that, you may have protocols around boots or footwear that again are designed, and every company does things differently. They may have foot bars, they may have a station where you change your footwear. You take off one set of boots, you put on another, or you put on coverings. That's another environmental control. Okay. More sophisticated is looking at the way the air ducts are moving. So if you've got air blowing into your high risk area, i.e. your ready to eat area, and that air is being picked up directly from your raw area, you could create risks. Equipment is another common one when you're moving equipment around. And generally companies are not moving whole lines at a time on a regular basis, but the sort of equipment I might be talking about would be carts and trolleys and tools that are used like that, where you might have product in your ready to eat area and you move it out after it's been prepared into a raw area or into a packaging area. And then that cart comes back in again to be used. So it fills up in the ready to eat area as packaging is being done. It moves out into a packaging boxing area, which is not as well controlled. That cart then comes right back in to be reloaded another time. So that would be an example where equipment is moving from high risk to low risk to high risk to low risk. And you know, as you do that, if you don't have a good program to control that risk, you're moving bad bugs like the stereomonocytogenes from raw areas and case packing areas back into your ready to eat area. So that's just another simple example that I'm talking about. And truly putting together a comprehensive program involves looking at all of those parts. And typically when TAG engages with a company to look at that, that's what we're looking at. We're starting looking at all of those controls. Where are your risks? How are you controlling them? And then asking the question whether your monitoring program is good enough, strong enough to be able to verify that those controls are working. And particularly identify a problem if there's one there, because that's what it's about. We want to find trouble early and fix it and not wait until little trouble becomes a major headache.
Okay. Well, you know, and that kind of leads into my next and kind of final question here. But, you know, we know that there are certainly areas of food facilities that, you know, are similar across the board, but there are very distinct differences as well. So how does TAG work with that? What, you know, how do you help customers when they're all so varied?
I think when you're looking at helping a customer, a client around understanding risks, it's critical to recognize that everybody's different. Every plant is different. Some plants are new and some plants are old, and that's a common situation in the food industry.
Right.
You know, many food facilities are 40 years old, 50 years old, or older. They weren't built to manage today's food safety risks.
Okay.
Other plants are 2 or 3 years old, and even they can struggle. You can still run into trouble in a brand new plant because your policies and procedures aren't right. So what's key here is customization and spending time with the client to go over just exactly what they're doing, where they've seen their challenges, their risks, looking at those programs, asking all those questions around cleaning and sanitation and people movement and hygienic zoning and moving of equipment, and truly understanding where the risks lie. and then assessing the program to say, okay, have you thought of everything? What else can we think of? And looking for those gaps and looking for ways to fix them. And fixing them needs to be cost effective.
Okay.
You may be looking at a plant that's 60 years old, and you're going to say the only way to fix this is to tear it down and rebuild it. Well, that doesn't often come across as very constructive and helpful advice.
Right.
It may be the perfect thing to do in the ideal world, but economics plays a huge part in the food industry. So that isn't the solution. Likewise, okay, you need to build a wall. Well, that's going to be ridiculously expensive. We've got infrastructure problems. We can't do that. Or we need to take a wall down. It's like, well, let's find an alternative way. And then maybe your training, your education, the use of other sanitizing systems is the answer. So the fundamental message here is that what TAG does is to engage with companies to truly understand what they've done, what they've found, how they're controlling the risks, and then customize the solution to them, combining food safety, regulatory requirements, and economic necessities. You've really got to put those together, because one size does not fit all by any means.
Okay. Well, thank you, David. I hope that we've been able to express some of the key concerns in environmental controls and help a few people. And if anyone is interested in more, feel free to contact TAG and we will get back with you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome. Thank you.